Hey Kelly, I was going to do a screen share of this real quick so that if anything's not clear, I can explain it. So I put the safety things that you probably want to do as soon as possible. Right here, you want to make the corrections on the deck that the home inspector noted. The most important one is the pickets, of course. There's some spacing in the boards that is going to cause it to fail prematurely. I mean, it needs spacing in the boards so the boards can dry out. You're going to have standing water on that. I can think of two ways to do that. One would just be to start pulling it up and move them all, put a space in between them. The other would be just to run a saw at every joint, and that's probably the fastest. It would probably bother me. I don't know why, just because those boards are a little tapered on the ends. So I would probably pull it up and just add the gaps to it, but that's a little ridiculous. Probably doesn't need to be done. Remove the insulation on the pipes near the water heater vent. That insulation, I mean those pipes that the vent goes right by, they're copper. So that insulation is only on there just to be a little more energy efficient and to keep them from freezing in the wintertime. They're not going to freeze in the wintertime underneath the house unless they're right against the wall, and they're not. So just take a knife and cut that insulation off so it doesn't melt or catch on fire. The outlets in the kitchen, just keep electrical shock from happening around water. When they remodeled that kitchen, put in that backsplash, one of those outlets was supposed to be a GFCI. Steven said something different, but he was saying that the outlets were added. But I know that house was required to have GFCI outlets even back then. So to find out which outlet you need to change is pretty easy, but you'll need a multimeter and all that. So that might be one of those things. If you do want me to do some punch list things on there that I could do to save you a lot of money, because bringing an electrician out would be really expensive because it's like 20 minutes worth of work, if that. 30 minutes probably, if at the most. The back door has a lock instead of a deadbolt that you can turn with your hand. That's a fire hazard. People do that a lot on glass doors, but you know, my dad was a fireman, and he would never let that happen, because even if you had a key nearby, it's just not safe. If you need to get out that door, you need to be able just to turn it. Yes, of course, somebody could punch in the glass and all that, but if they're going to make that much racket, there's a lot of other ways to get in that are easier than knocking out a double pane door. So put a TPR valve extension on the hot water heater. That's the pipe. It's a blow-off pipe to let steam out if it for some reason builds up. And apparently back in the day they didn't have those, and water heaters could blow up. And so they put this valve on there to keep that from happening. But what happens is if it does go off for any reason, which it would only go off for a second, just to get the pressure off, it's going to force that hot water everywhere. So you're just supposed to put this little extension that runs down. That's a really easy one. It's in the home inspection report. Separating the neutrals in the electric box, there's just one lug where a wire goes into that's double tapped, meaning they put two wires in it. Because aluminum, which is what it's attached to, expands and contracts a lot, those need to be individual things, so they're not tied on one wire but not tied on the other one, and it could cause arcing. Again, super easy. You just need a screwdriver to do that one. The anti-tip thing on the oven, I've never had my oven tip over little things, so I would say if you didn't have kids, like, you'd be fine. I've had my dishwasher try to tip over when it wasn't, screwed well to the counter, which is another thing that was on there, and I think I forgot to put it on there. I'll add it before I send this to you. If you don't have kids around, it's hard to flip over an oven. I wouldn't worry about it too much. The moisture problem on the front of the house, there's some wood that has gotten damp. He said it was not rotten. I mean, it was definitely ongoing, so that wood will start to rot. It's going to be stained either way, so once you get what little moisture problem you have on the front of the house, you kind of get that under control. You can decide to replace those boards. You don't actually have to replace the board because it's behind a brick wall, so it's called blocking. You just add little boards in that gap. Let me show you real quick. This is okay. Oh, I already have pulled up. So right here, what would happen? The reason you can just block it, you put another board here, and you nail it to this. Even if that board was completely deteriorated and you couldn't nail it, that's still okay, because what you're doing is making sure that there's something to support the weight of this wall and this floor right above it if this were to fail. So I would do it just because it will look better going forward when you sell it. Anyway, go back to my list here. Okay. Put dirt, you know about that, where the negative grade, you need to add a negative grade. You got a positive grade within about 4 inches of the house, all around the house in different places. So, siding and flashing issues, there is a little kick-out flashing that he said you needed for your gutters. I didn't know they all had to have them. I thought that was just something some people did, but apparently it's coming up on inspections now. I can make that little piece from the picture and attach it or give it to somebody that your boyfriend, your dad, or somebody. Repaint the door brick molding to prevent rot. Those you'll just always have to paint those. I mean, I'd say every year to 2 years. There's just a really easy place for wood to rot. That brick molding is just the bottom of the door jamb. In worst case, if it rots out, it's not structural. You just have to replace the brick molding. See, stock leaky hose faucets. There's 2 of them. Sometimes you just tighten a screw, or worse is you can replace the seals inside. Since it is on copper, it's going to be a big pain in the butt if you actually have to replace the whole bib. But it can be done. It's not that big a deal. But you have to do it from under the house. Caulk hole where the siding's damaged. Trim on the back door as well. I think it was in different places, not just in the jamb. Secure dishwasher. Okay, I did have that on there. Correct seeping in upstairs hall bath sink. Apparently there's a little bit of seeping out underneath that sink. It probably is just a little, I can't think what they're called, but it's like a little gasket. I can't think what that's called off the top of my head. Or it literally just needs to be tightened a little bit by hand. Correct the dripping in the hall shower. It looks like the shower head is just the tape where they tape it to. If you're probably going to put a new shower head in eventually, because it's kind of a weird shower head. This is European style. Man, my phone's going up. If you change that, that'll fix the problem. And install a pan under the clothes washer. This house wasn't required to have it. Just installing the pan isn't going to do you much good, because if something were to really happen, it'd overflow the pan. So the idea there is that you would then drain that outside the house. Depending on what you have space-wise in the attic and stuff, that one might be impossible. So you can put the pan under it if you just want to save a little splash coming out of it. But if you're in between floors, it's going to be really hard to get a pipe out the outside of the house. Again, these are some things that are just aesthetic that you just want to knock out, and this could be the whole inspection list. So I didn't include everything, because all these things that you don't correct are going to come up on the next inspection, and then some more, So, but these are the ones that I think were pretty important. Tuck and point bricks. That's something that if it's a minor crack, you can do yourself. But if it's major, then you need a mason who will actually cut it out. No crack was more than 1/4 inch, so you can do these all yourselves. And then just check the floor level and eventually replace those jacks in the crawl space with an acceptable support. The thing I'm thinking there is you need a 16 by 16 by 4 inch pad of compacted dirt. Of concrete with compacted dirt underneath. That was what it was 10 years ago when I was flipping houses. So I would have to check on that through a home inspector or a builder to make sure that's what the code is now. Okay, so these are improvements that I would say if you can do these for your own benefit, enjoy them, do them soon, but definitely they'd be nice on resale. And that first one is the sealed moisture barrier. If you're still getting water in, you can put a sealed moisture barrier where it doesn't just overlap, it's actually taped to the walls and taped to each other. And then replace, I think it's one window and one door where the seals were cracked and water had gotten in, moisture getting in. There is a way that they can repair those without redoing the whole window, but it does cost about as much as a window. So it's just a lot easier. You don't have to repaint afterwards and stuff like that. And last time I got an estimate on it, I was like, nah, it's crazy. We'll put all new windows in for that price. But it'll come out to almost as much, like $200 to $300 a window. I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Bring water heater. Let me fix that vent up to code. The water heater vent on. I'm not exactly sure why it wasn't up to code, other than the fact it went between those pipes. But I think it has too many twists in it. You have a direct vent and an indirect vent, and that's a indirect vent. It basically doesn't have a fan blowing it, so you could possibly change the vent itself. But that's not a deal breaker for anybody, I don't think. Just, if you do end up putting a new water heater in, just make sure that they reroute that so that it matches the type of gas water heater you have.